You may be asking yourself, I ride moto. Why does a 1, 2, 3 hour bike ride benefit me? What is that doing for me? Well, let's break it down a little bit. So when you go on these longer, lower intensity base rides, you're doing a number of things. First, look at it like weight training for your heart. Like at that long, slow intensity, you're still at an elevated heart rate. You're shooting for zone 2. Um, just that repeatedly pumping action over and over at a nice steady state, you're building that heart muscle up. You're making it more efficient. It's going to pump more volume over time versus like a lot of times when you're training at like high intensity, the heart's spazzing a little bit because it's really working at its max. So it's not like a good pump. It's just spasming, and you need that high intensity. That's super important as well, but that's a different part of the program, a different goal. Another thing you're looking at with these longer rides is the longer you go, you're starting to recruit in more high twitch fibers. So as the slow twitch fibers, they fatigue over time, you're starting to bring in these high twitch fibers. So you're actually getting a lot of that benefit that you would get from high intensity with the fast twitch fibers, but it's not going to tax your adrenals. It's not going to send your nervous system into overdrive. You're not going to get those fatigue factors because the human body can only handle so much high intensity a week. And if you're training for motocross already and you're riding 4 times a week, 3 times a week, even if a couple of those days are lower intensity, you're still getting a lot of high intensity on that bike, and you're like fight or flight the whole time you're doing motos and everything, especially if you're like setting up and racing with other people who you're training with and stuff. So that's super taxing on your nervous system, and it's super taxing on your adrenals, and that's why a lot of people get sick in the sport, because it's just like go every time you're out. It's always just you got to push. You're not going to see good results, and that's so far from the truth. And I think that's why you see people like Eli Tomac, Barsha, Ken Roxon, going into more of an advanced age into the sport because they're training smarter. They're not training that old school, just hammer. They're doing their intensity work when they should be doing their intensity work, and then they're doing their lower intensity work when they're doing their lower intensity work. They're maximizing their gym sessions, not spending too much time in the gym, spending 2 hours in the gym, overdoing it, then you're fatigued and you're not able to recover. All these things are super important, and that's why it's good to have a coach to look over this stuff, because it's so easy when you're just training yourself. And I do it with myself all the time. Like, I'll go too hard one week and I'll be like, yeah, I'll be feeling it. And then it takes me a couple weeks to recover, especially at age 36 now. So you really have to manage when you're doing your high intensity work, when you're doing your low intensity work. And those low intensity long rides, yeah, it's hard to get the time to do them, and they're not the most fun. They're very mentally draining, but that's also another thing. It builds up that mental strength to be able to go out there and ride a bicycle for 3, sometimes 4 hours, depends on how extreme you want to go with it, and to be able to get through that mentally. And the longer you go, it builds that mental strength up, because the hardest thing is only the hardest thing you've done. So you think something's hard, and then you do something harder, that thing that you thought was hard isn't as hard anymore. So it's all a lot of food for thought when it comes to training and things like that. So just wanted to get that out there.